everybody's well. It has been a very long week and not negative, just long. Been a lot going on. Hope all of you are well. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. You know what it is. And tonight we're going to look at a little bit on this new push to renew the color purple. Now, I first want to say I appreciate you guys coming through. What's up, Jay Cleveland? Hybrid Ninja out of Vegas. Okay, that's what's up. Joel, what's going on? Cozy, Freddie, Christopher. Hope everybody's good. I apologize about coming on this late. I wasn't planning to do that, but I did something I've been trying to tell people to do for a while now, and that is to videotape interviews with elders, with family, and I'm doing it really for the sake of, my child, hopefully grandkids one day, that kind of thing. So my sister and I have taken this up. So we interviewed my father, I want to say back in December, and that was a good 6 hours. We just did Zoom and recorded it, and we basically just asked him about his life, birth to present. And today we started on interviewing my mother. You know what I'm saying? Because time flies, you never know what's going on. You never know what happens with people. Get it in now while the people you care about are in your life. And I did this with my grandmother when she passed, before she passed, obviously, but it ends up becoming a useful record. Because here's the thing, man, when people are telling stories that you want to pass down, it's so much better to do that when you get to see them telling their stories, their own facial inflections, their energy, how they speak, how they carry themselves. A lot of that stuff can't be mimicked, and it's so easy to do now. So I just want to put that out there again. Take advantage of the technology, interview the family while you still got them. Get it in. So anyway, no, that's what's up. RM, what's happening? Jay Cleveland, I feel you. I appreciate that from you. So we're going to delve into this question. I'm a little tired, so I'm not going to plan on doing a really long session, but I promised that I was going to kind of give some thoughts on color purple. I was going to do it anyway, but it got doubled down on because Wednesday night during my live, somebody asked me to give some thoughts. So I said, okay, I was going to do it anyway, but let me make sure I get it in. Because with this new framework I'm trying out, I'm going to basically do videos Monday through Friday. And, just kind of recoup over the weekend and catch up on other things. That said, support the show. Like, share, subscribe, join, donate, help the show out. You know what I'm saying? I understand things are getting tight for some people, but, help us keep things flowing. So anyway, I wanted to go through this article that appears on Variety, and it's entitled Fantasia Taylor and Danielle Brooks to play Celie and Sophia in the Color Purple movie. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, I don't like that. Thought I had it fixed, but this is what we deal with sometimes. So there we go. That's a little cleaner. All right. So Variety, as I said, and it's interesting to see how many of these various projects that target Black women get high level, stage access, high level platforms. But when it comes to Black men, it's an interesting transition, interesting difference, I should say. But anyway, so Blitz Balawule's The Color Purple musical has founded Celie and Sophia in Fantasia Taylor and Danielle Brooks. Both actors reprised their respective roles from the stage musical, where Taylor made her Broadway debut as Celie in 2007 following her American Idol win, and Brooks earned a Tony Award nomination for her portrayal of Sophia in the 2015 revival. Taylor and Brooks' casting was announced on Thursday as part of the ABC News special, Soul Nation Presents. All right, I'm going to skip through some of this. To the heart of some of this. So Brooks relived the emotional moment when Winfrey, who was producing the new movie under her Harpo Films banner, revealed that she was chosen for the role during a Zoom call. I'm here representing all things purple to tell you that you are our Sophia, Winfrey said in the recording. I'm so happy to pass whatever baton from 35, almost 40 years ago to you. I know you're going to kill it. Right. And she says, my heart is so full. I'm going to make you so proud. And Winfrey says, you already have. I wanted to be the one to tell you because, you know, I have such love for her, this character, everything she represents and everything she brought to my life. And what I'm hoping is that she does the same thing for you. Right. You can see that. I'm not going to play the video. Really not. Anyway, Brooks, who's best known for her work on Orange is the New Black and currently stars in Peacemaker, also revealed that seeing The Color Purple on Broadway as a teenager inspired her to act. Now, this has become like a religion. It really has. But I'll get into that in a minute. Seeing all these beautiful array of different skin tones and voices in the story, and I just sat like this and I cried. I saw that it was possible. Like I could do this thing that I've been doing in my small town in South Carolina. I could do this for a living. And it goes on from there. Color of my skin, my lips were always bigger, the biggest thing on my body. She recalled explaining how she related to Celie. I remember being on Idol. We had to come up with this little thing. And I said, my lips are big, but my talent is bigger. I had to start accepting who I was at that age. But when I was younger, it was things that I dealt with. Just feeling beautiful, wanting a certain kind of love. So we relate in a lot of ways. Davis also sat down with Goldberg to reflect on the impact of the film, which marked her feature acting debut. What did you feel that The Color Purple did as far as the strength of Black women on the screen? Davis asked. Goldberg says it reminds people that we are the backbone of a lot of this country. Okay. The upcoming Warner Brothers movie is an adaptation of the Tony-winning Broadway musical, which is itself an adaptation of Alice Walker's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel. The production is directed by Bazawule. I may be mispronouncing that. Best known for his work on Beyonce's Black is King. Okay, so he's been well acknowledged by the Gynarchy. That's basically what that means. You know. Anyway, Marcus Gardley, The Shy, wrote the screenplay based on Walker's novel, the 1985 film, and the stage musical with a book by Marsha Norman and music and lyrics by Brenda Russell, Stephen Bray, and the late Allie Willis, I guess. Alongside Winfrey, Spielberg also returns to produce for his Amblin Entertainment. Scott Sanders and Quincy Jones, both of whom produced the Broadway musical, are also producers. Alice Walker, Rebecca Walker, Mara Jacobs, Carla Gardini, Christy Makosko Krieger, and Adam Fell are executive producers. So, in essence, they are bringing back the original crew plus a few. And if I'm not mistaken, Rebecca Walker might be Alice's daughter. But anyway, earlier this week, Variety exclusively revealed that Taraji P. Henson had joined the cast as Suge Avery. The new cast members joined previously announced stars Corey Hawkins, who will take on the role of Harpo, and Oscar and Grammy-winning artist H.E.R. Her, who was cast as Squeak. Anyway, skipping down to the bottom. Color Purple begins production this spring and is slated for release in 2023. Now, Ray Don Chong was the original Squeak in the original film, but they're trying to make this a legacy. Same crew is bringing it back, attempting to strike the same bolt of lightning that they struck before, and it will very likely have the same impact. Really, what they're trying to do is update this film, right, for a new generation. And of course, they can delve into some of the areas they didn't delve into as deeply in the 80s. So I'm sure the LGBT quotient will be up a little. I'm not saying that's bad or good. It just is what it is. They're adapting it to the time. But the problem that I have with this is the thing that I know they're not going to update is the embedded misandry, because it's rooted in the book by Alice Walker. The core story does not and will not step away from its investment in the degradation of Black males. I remember being a little kid in a family full of women who rehearsed this kind of narrative regularly, celebrated it, along with this notion of, independence, right? But seeing it on the screen was a whole different level of it, given the veneer of historical accuracy, given the veneer of this legacy of oppressive Black men who owned land and were wealthy and just had to go out and find 13-year-old girls to rape and force to be their slaves. So, the core idea around the color purple is to put forth this notion that Black women went through a special slavery after slavery, that Black men ran, controlled, and exploited them for their own advancement. This is the core idea of the color purple. It's a special slavery for Black women. And in order to do that, it creates a boogeyman in the Black patriarch. And we've not seen an era where this so-called Black patriarch exists. Hell, even Mr., played by Danny Glover, was a fabrication. Much like the slave catcher from Harriet. Early part of the 20th century, whatever. Really, you got a Black man who owns land. Anyway, this shit is so contrived. It gives me a headache. And to see it revisited with such verve, with such excitement, speaks to the celebration of the moment where this independent idea is linked to the degradation of Black males, the ascendancy of Black females without men, or at least without men that they actually had to engage. For the most part, this is the early original film is the era where the "I don't need a man" was introduced. And this new type of misandry that we really saw early on with films like, with books like Michelle Wallace's Black Macho and the Myth of the Superwoman, Nisaki Shango's, what's her name? Oh goodness, I always forget the name. I don't always forget it, but I am now. For Color Girls, right? That choreo poem that came out, stage play. And despite the accuracy of the information we had available to us, that not only sociologists and historians, but Black women sociologists and historians were putting forth in the 70s and 80s, these kind of projects, ran against all of that. And nobody cared. They promoted a world where all Black men were oppressive and abusive and were inherently rapists, excuse me. And Black women just had to navigate this world as innocent little ducklings. And it fed into, almost with religious zeal, the impulse to be independent. Now, this independent idea was a problem unto itself, and it had been. And we could really take it back to slavery, the plantation. We could take the idea of female independence back to then, because really all it meant, really what female independence means, Black female independence, is independence from Black men, dependence on white men. And you can see it historically, and you can even see it symbolically with the film. Steven Spielberg, anyone? The original film and this film, he's back. And he stamps Oprah's film, which is a code for letting white society know that this is a project they can get behind. So what I'm saying is, Black female independence is really, it's basically another way of putting out a dependence, making the dependence on white men look empowering. That's really what it does. And to see it celebrated over and over again with Oprah's projects, for one, it's already problematic. Appreciate that support, Durante. It's already a problem, but it's something that they're definitely not going to stop pushing, because it convinces young women, most particularly, that this is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to relive the era of their aunties, mothers, and in some instances, their grandmothers. Generation X, most particularly, but even some of the younger boomers. The idea being that you have to reinvent the independent Black woman for a new era. Which is interesting because when you look at some of the young men at this time period, they are already freaking sick of their treatment anyway. So this film, which I consider the book as well to be really poison, is really just going to further drive a wedge between women that claim they want to be independent from men that they already have been several generations trained into resenting, fearing, and finding ways to control in order to have the things that they want, some of which, they got to rely on Black men for, like sperm, but it's still based on a dependence on white men, whether that's individual white men on a plantation who owned you or whether it's through the state. But either way, the independence, and I've talked about this in other shows, this notion of independence depends on a lot of men, almost like a Frankenstein, men that are pieced together, one for sperm, one for sex, one for resources, one from the state, one from the family court, one from the police, all methods of controlling, in many instances, Black males, whether they be husbands, boyfriends, sons, you name it, keeping an arm's length distance from them so that there's no real, genuine connection, and rehearsing a fear of Black men that was fabricated in the white imagination. And that's not to say individual women didn't have experiences with men that weren't problematic, but hell, Black men had plenty of relationships with women that were problematic. And it's interesting to see how all of that gets skirted, because this narrative pushed by Walker and others promotes the idea that the disgusting, dysfunctional aspects of African American culture only extended from men to women. It's one of the things you'll notice, especially if you're talking to Gen X women about films like this and the era that they came up with. The Terry McMillan books and films that came out after this, right? Everything all the way from Women to Brewster's Place to, Beloved, right? When the books, the films, Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou, this whole period that's supposed to be the renaissance of Black women, Black women's independence. This whole era taught a generation of women that Black men were irrelevant. And what did it do? Shout out to Adam for the Cash App. Appreciate that. It promoted a split that we still haven't recovered from, even for women who are suffering it, still suffering from it. It's interesting. I'm still seeing grown ass women that are afraid of shit they ain't even experienced. Because we were told that this is what Black men do to you. So if you approach them with hostility and distrust and try to control them with dysfunctional negative behavior, and they buck and don't respect those gestures, that's just confirmation that Black men are everything that these kind of projects suggest they are. Now, it would be interesting to see if they try to address some of the concerns that men in the last decade have been speaking up about. That would be an interesting adaptation I would be curious about, but I doubt it. I highly doubt it. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. I think at the end of the day, there is a renaissance that is in need of occurring. And the renaissance I'm seeing is taking place with Black men. And I probably shouldn't call it a renaissance because, if anything, renaissance is more of a re-celebration of something that, I don't know, might have had legs in the past. But at the end of the day, what I'm seeing with Black men today is fairly new. A willingness to speak out, a willingness not to just take shit and eat it, a willingness to question how we're being represented and by who. And renewing projects like this is tantamount to recreating the original Birth of a Nation in my book. Except the difference is it's specifically targeted. Well, hell no, the original was targeted to black men as well. We just said it was targeted to the black community, but it was very much targeted to black men. I don't think this is any different. I don't think it's any different. And it's interesting to see how many people are running to participate in this project. But this is the identity they want to rehearse. So my question to black men is, are you going to accept it? If I knew as a kid what I know now, I would have got up and walked out. Or not gone. Protested it, you know. But at the end of the day, I think it's time that black men has something to say about how we're represented and who gets to represent us and what agency they should be held accountable for in this project, in this dynamic. Because really, the assault on black men never should have happened and damn sure shouldn't be celebrated to this day. And black men have as much reason as anybody to point out the flaws in the culture, the treatment by particular demographics in the community. Oh, there's plenty of reason to go around. If you want to be petty about it and be tit for tat, trust me when I tell you there is plenty to go around as far as critique. But we know one critique makes the stage with Spielberg, Whoopi Goldberg, Oprah Winfrey, all these major celebrities, Quincy Jones, and another gets no acknowledgement at all. You know what the answer to the original Color Purple was and that whole genre of films and books? It was hip hop. But the thing about it is hip hop in the 80s trying to respond to this, this monster of a genre. It was really teenage young men, mostly teenage and early 20s, unlettered, using their own personal experiences to respond. That's why they talked about the girls in the club. This is why they talked about the ones who got you set up to be robbed, the ones that lied and slept with your homeboy, the ones that lied about a baby that they said was yours, or tried to use the family court or the police against you just because they were angry. This was hip hop's attempt to respond to a rising black feminism that was openly hostile to black men and could not even imagine progressive, supportive black men or black men across the political spectrum who still took care of family and their loved ones. Matter of fact, these films wouldn't even acknowledge the very men that supported these women in their individual lives. And these women never acknowledged these men publicly. The ex-boyfriends, the fathers, the uncles, the brothers who paid your rent when you were trying to be an actor in the 80s and trying to get in one of these films, the ones that paid your way through school or, bought you a car so you can get around to work, found you a job, all those micro granular situations where many of these very black women depended on men like that were never publicly acknowledged. Just to have projects like this tell the world they ain't shit. So all I'm saying with this is that at some point, black men have to decide what they want to support and what they don't, and be vocal about it. And be vocal about it. The best we could do at the time was hip hop. What can we do now? Curious. I really am curious. What can we do now? Because this is cultural poison, but it's being poured into a very beautiful goblet, an expensive one. And we're being told that it's quality. By goblet, I mean it's put on a major stage with major backing. beautiful people who are very talented at singing and acting, but it's still poison. You can dress it up however you want. That becomes part of the problem, doesn't it? People are convinced by the packaging to consume this poison and then turn around and vomit on those around them. And that's what this does. The other thing it does is it requires a certain type of emotional labor. And we talked about this a few weeks ago. Whole concept, right? Black males, especially relationship emotional labor. And what that essentially has to do with are the social expectations of men, particularly Black men, and what kind of role they have to play, suffering, sacrificing, engaging in labor to support women's emotions, often with no fanfare or acknowledgement. Color Purple, what it does as a whole is it tells the world that Black men are monsters. And the emotional work that Black men attempt to do to refute this narrative is to argue that we're not. See, in the 80s, when this came out, I remember the kind of zeitgeist, the kind of impulse at the moment where men sought to respond by demonstrating that we were the very men that they claimed we weren't. See, this was the era, and I've said this before, where we were introduced to you need to make six figures, you need to be fit, you need to have a certain length penis, you need to be able to, have a certain kind of car, own a certain kind of house, just to qualify for any Black woman that paid you attention. That was the era where young boys like myself, I was born in 74. So by the time you get to, the mid 80s, I'm an early teen. And I was being indoctrinated at that time with projects like this that were telling me I wasn't shit. And the low key narrative from there, or I shouldn't even say narrative, the low key idea was that I would rise to fight that by proving that I am what they say I'm not, as opposed to just walking away. Patrice O'Neal said it best when he was quoting from that Matthew Broderick movie War Games. Sometimes, the only way to win is not to play. But that didn't cross our minds. What many of us as young Black men did, and you can listen to the R&B, the music of the times, we tried to double down to prove we weren't what they said we were. So we strove to get degrees. We strove to make money, even if it was illegal. We strove to, by all the trappings of success, achieve all the things we were told we couldn't achieve. Some of us did it poorly. Some of us did it well. Some of us faked it. But we all kind of had a sense that in order to really kind of push the community forward, we had to prove to our women that we were not the monsters that we were seeing in the media. Now, this was not coming from all Black women, of course, but I will say I often consider Oprah as the spigot, so you had this real obscure, hostile kind of feminism coming from this small population of academics. And it was through Oprah Winfrey that it was poured out in the mainstream. She was the spigot. Somebody turned her on the full, financed her, let it roll out there. Appreciate that support, 608 Portraits. And she spilled this into the community, right? So now you have women who've never picked up a Black feminist text, some of whom couldn't even tell you who Patricia Hill Collins is, Barbara Smith, Combahee River Collective. They couldn't even tell you who those are, but they had the most negative and vile Black feminist talking points through projects like this. So you did start to feel a push that came from beyond just the movie, beyond just the book or the stage play, and it started to come from the women you lived with, siblings, parents, aunts, uncles, extended family. You started to hear it in all of those instances. There was this rehearsal of Black male monstrosity, celebrated and denigrated at the same time. And so our response in many instances wasn't to collectively, contradict this. Cozy Corner, appreciate that support. It wasn't to respond to this in the same mediums. We didn't have access to those platforms. You had young men responding in hip hop, but again, even when they were critiquing it, they were trying to demonstrate that we weren't that. So even the rappers, right? One of the things you started to see were gold chains. You started to see nice cars. You started to see this projection of an idea of success in contrast to what we were being represented as in films like this. And even amongst the brethren in the community. We tried to exemplify. And even when we failed, we were still trying to exemplify evidence that we were not what we were being accused of being. Is it enough? Do you think a young generation of men who are 3 generations exhausted with this bullshit are going to try to prove a lie wrong again? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think you have an exhaustion that I've never seen before. It's not just about men who want to divest or go find women of a different race in another part of the world. That's not it. It's not limited to that. That's actually just a percentage. You have men that are thoroughly exhausted because even when they break every stereotype, even when they place themselves in the top 5%, how much of the image of Black men moves the needle? I think at the end of the day, what we're seeing more than anything is an exhaustion. It's not only an exhaustion of how the mainstream perceives Black men, it's an exhaustion of how significant elements of the community have internalized these external ideas about Black men. Even the boys are tired. I've never seen that before. And they're checking out. They're checking out. I'm going to do a video next week where you'll see what I'm talking about. But they're checking out. There's been an overcorrection as far as addressing feminism, but most particularly, there's an overcorrection in a Black community that didn't really require the correction in the first place because Black men were not in a structural position of dominance. Of course, you had individual acts of abuse. Of course, you had individual acts of sexual violation. You got that in any community. And believe it or not, women are far from immune for extending the same type of aggression toward men, often in equal numbers. The only difference is we don't process it the same because we haven't had a movement that even identified how men grapple with various types of vulnerability. Social, political, sexual, you name it. We haven't had that movement. We're having it now in some respects. For those who are willing and clear enough to articulate it politically and push that out using data. Still a very small percentage of us doing it, but it's happening. And it's just happening now in the last few years. Now, I mean, there have been sprinkles of it over time. You can go back to the 70s and find individual people doing it. But when you're starting to see a collective of Black men who are starting to come together and articulate using empirical data, the vulnerabilities of Black men that have gone ignored. That's just happening now. And we're on the 40th anniversary of the hatchet job that has still not been corrected from the 1980s. So alongside this exhaustion that I detect with young men, students coming in my classes, young boys, young men online, ones I talk to at random, the ones that reach out to me, aside from this exhaustion that I notice, there is an actual desire to ask the question, is this all we are? Because when you and your father have grown up hearing nothing but niggas ain't shit, you either believe it and you become destitute, you become disconnected, you know, or you ask the question, is this all there is about us? And many of these projects, you know, where they have such rampant participation, these women have sons, brothers. You think it matters? Not really. They don't make the connection that the projects that they're engaged in, the worldview that they're pushing out to the world, they have no sense how dangerous and damaging this is. and many don't care. Shout out to E. Taylor. Shout out to Reynolds. Appreciate the support. Shout out to Otis. That's the Otis I think it is, but if it isn't, shout out to you anyway. But yeah, I don't think there's an appreciation for just how poisonous this shit is. And at some point, black men need to stand up and walk out of the goddamn theater. Because the arguing doesn't work. The presentation of information, the presentation of the argument is necessary, but at this point, I stopped arguing with people that try and put these projects on. I do my work so that other black men can hear what I'm saying and hopefully use that information to improve their situation. But I stopped arguing with them. Because these kind of projects come with career advancement. They come with status. They come with resources, money, jobs, titles, grants, policy. Not enough incentive for a lot of these people to walk away from this. So I don't ask them to. Instead, I lay the case at black men's feet. And I tell you what this film did for the last 40 years. And I ask you, you gonna support its renewal? I mean, here's the thing. I mean, we don't have to, it doesn't have to be this kind of thing where, we just tear everything down that black women make. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we can write think pieces. We can put out blogs. We can put it out on social media to explain why we're walking away from these kinds of projects, why we will not support it. But the important thing for me is that you do both. You articulate why, and you don't support it. Because we got a habit of supporting shit that's poisonous for us. This is what we were taught to do. Because I remember being told in the 80s, this was supposed to be a good thing. This was supposed to be empowering and uplifting. And all I saw was both the women in my family and the women on the screen that looked like my family, all of them telling black men, you're monsters. None of that explained, the elder brother, he's an elder professor at my university, he passed away some years ago. I remember he came in my comments on my Facebook page once. This is the last time I engaged him before he passed away. And he was listening to something I was saying about abuse in the black community. And one of the things he recounted was how he saw his grandmother, shoot a shotgun at his grandfather several times. His grandfather had not put hands on her, had not done anything to deserve that. She was just angry. She wasn't getting her way. So she shot at him multiple times with a shotgun. And he remembered her as a young boy, looking at her, standing in the front door of the house, holding a shotgun that was still smoking. This movie doesn't cover her. Women that lied, women that exploited men, underdeveloped them, sexually violated boys. This movie doesn't encompass any of that. It doesn't cover half of the black experience, but touts itself as the definition of what should be considered the black experience and slaps celebrity faces on it to do it. So anyway, I want to see you guys speak out against the legacy of this film and actually be able to do so well. Articulate your points well. We need to get to that point. DJ B-Side, appreciate that support. We got to push back against it and walk away. Very appreciate the support, man. I'm not, and again, I'm not talking about you got to walk away from people or, no, I'm just saying we don't have to support the shit. We've been told that we're supposed to support it to be good black men. I did a show a few weeks ago about this. What does it mean to be a good black man? Part of what it means is to swallow this and say it's good and support it. I refuse. Nope. No, sir. And I hope you'll join me. Anyway, it's Friday night. I hope you guys are enjoying life. I will talk to you soon. Y'all have a good one. Peace.